The NBA draft is now 9 days away.
9 days.
9 days, a week from Wednesday. With that, the mock drafts are starting to come out a little bit more frequently, and there's things be a-changing.
It's really interesting to see this, the way that these mock drafts are being unraveled, because we've talked about the inconsistency with where people are evaluating this draft, because it's like you have your 1-2 and then there's a massive drop off and you don't really know where things are going to go. You also have, turnover in front offices. Like you've mentioned, the Trajan Langdon, shift in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're going to do is now people are going, we have no earthly idea what direction they're going to go in. And then you have so many teams with needing to take big swings because they have massive holes to fill. Usually you have it narrowed down to, okay, this team needs this. We can narrow it down to a few guys. There is a large swath of teams, including Portland and San Antonio, which each have 2 picks in the lottery this year, that they're like, we've got a lot of holes and we have no idea where we're going to go. And then the fact that Atlanta jumped up so high in this draft and nobody has any earthly idea which of the top 2 prospects they're going to take, it's getting even weirder.
Yeah. On the intel side of things, I have heard that Atlanta, and this is prime lying season, so take it for what it's worth as far as the intel circuits are concerned, that they're interested in moving back and getting some draft capital, particularly with San Antonio, because San Antonio controls some of their picks from the DeJounte Murray trade. And if they're going to reset, they need their own picks.
And, by the way, Alex Sarr is from
France.
Zach Rizachet is
France.
From okay.
So, I've also heard that if they're going to trade back, they like Donovan Clingan. If they do stay at the top, there's real truth to them liking Zachary Rizachet, which I like Rizachet. I do not like him better than Sarr. I just unequivocally, I have Sarr as the one player on my board that is number 1, no matter what.
He's freaky, man. He is 7'1" and can run up
just
and down the floor.
Move with or without the ball. I've never seen a 7-footer put the ball down on the floor with his level of like control and burst. It's creepy. It doesn't look right.
Like, I don't know if I've seen a 7. Well, no, of his size, 7'1",
no,
picking up a guard on the perimeter willingly and just being like,
and tracking him, not like kind of keeping up with him, staying up and cutting off lanes. It's not normal. But beyond that, I have heard from multiple front office executives that their boards do not match what are out there currently with mocks. Even the most well-connected, maybe 10, 20% of the picks they agree with, like, match up in their board, like slotting wise.
And that's why we've talked about this ad nauseum, that every time we go through a mock draft, we see different names and different machinations of which names are connected to Portland. It is the weirdest. It's the weirdest draft that I can remember. I mean, working here for 15 years, I can't remember a year where it was there were so many names connected to Portland. And having 2 draft picks and having number 7 and number 14, that puts it in a weird position, right? Because either they're really high or they're out of the lottery. And so but right now, having 7 and 14, you're sitting there and you're looking at it going, who the hell knows right now? And that is a weird territory to be in, because it's who the hell knows, because they have so many holes.
Yep.
They could draft somebody at every single position with the exception of point guard, and you'd be like, yeah, I could see it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, a couple weeks ago, every mock had Modest Buzelis going 5th to Detroit. There's only one service that does right now, and that's Kevin O'Connor at the Ringer. I'm sorry, not Kevin O'Connor. It was Yahoo. Kristen Peak, Kristen Peak will be on with us next Monday.
Hey, yo.
If you look at Jonathan Wasserman, who will be on tomorrow afternoon to join us to talk some NBA draft, he has Cody Williams going number 5. Cody Williams of Colorado is a guy whose name has moved up.
And the Ringer just posted Kevin O'Connor. He has him 5th.
Number 5th as well.
Going to...
Number 5th. Number 5.
Yeah, going to the Detroit Pistons.
Speaking of the Ringer, Kevin O'Connor has Donovan Clingan going number 7 overall. That is, 7 is seen as Donovan Clingan's floor. If he falls to 7, Portland will take him as a best player available situation.
And not think twice.
I don't know if I'm there yet.
If Williams is gone
No,
in front of him?
Clingan.
Okay.
I'm saying if Clingan's there, I'm not 100% certain. I have a reeling suspicion of which way they would go there. Clingan doesn't necessarily fit their archetype prototype. This is going to sound like I'm crushing him, but it's not. They moved away from Yusuf Nurkic for a reason.
Well, okay.
And
Clingan is 7 foot
2 barefoot,
heavy-footed
yes
guy.
He moves well for his size.
Yeah, he's a defensive dog though.
Yeah,
but they want more skill.
More fluidity and athleticism in that. Now they do need better screeners. They do need. That's a real thing that they need, and Clingan does provide that. Him and Edey are probably your best screeners in the draft. But you take a look at that. He is not a vertical threat. He's not a pick and roll threat. He's solid around the rim, but you're number one. The Blazers aren't looking to post anybody up, but he's not that really as a guy that you go to, which it doesn't really matter. But as far as like how they have talked about and what I've heard that they like in their bigs, he doesn't really fit. Now he does add the screening and playmaking.
I was gonna say, just give me a big, solid screener that can let Scoot get downhill, can let Ant, if he's here, or Shaden come off and get moving downhill.
The flip side of that is Clingan's not a great roll guy. It's not a guy that you have to like. He's not catching and he might make a play on it 4-on-3, but he's not this guy that he catches and dives to the rim and finishes with ferocity. Like that's not who he is. He's 280 pounds. That's him losing weight. Is 280 pounds. He was last year. He's over 300. So he's a mountain of a human. He's a big dude. Like, which is a good thing to have. But think about that with Scoot Henderson. If you have this big guy who doesn't have a ton of vertical or rim rolling gravity, then you're just going to
not a perimeter shooter either.
Yeah, and you're just going to under that pick and roll to death. So like I'm a little hesitant of that pick. At 14, Kevin O'Connor has Tidjane Salaün from France, who is
if he's there, 11. We've seen him at 4. As high as 4.
14 is his floor, I think.
Down to 14.
I think that's his floor.
Like, and I've said this before. I would be okay if he was the pick at 7, even. But we'll see kind of how the draft board shakes out in front of Portland 1 through 6, and then you got to start making those decisions. But I mean that if they were to get a Clingan Salaün type draft, I would be in. I would be so far in. I think it would be really exciting because Tidjane Salaün, he's going to be a project, but you have the guy who fits the arc age-wise, is
physical profile,
a really good defender, he's like the hustle guy, right? But is he going to be the shooter that they kind of need right now to fill holes? Because kind of sounds like he's a couple years behind the guy who we all fell in love with this year was the steal in the trade from Phoenix in Toumani Camara, right? Hustle, really tough defender, will be physical. But we saw long stretches of the season where Toumani Camara was just buried in the corner, not doing much of anything on the offensive end. And you need this draft, this team, they need a little bit of punch offensively.
If you take a look at Jonathan Wassman, he has Clingan at 7. He has Tristan Da Silva at 14, who Da Silva just came through on his workout, his second time through. He came through last year. High floor, lower ceiling kind of guy. High IQ, can do a little bit of everything, can put the ball on the floor, can defend, can shoot, can make reads. Just a smart player. I heard some people kind of say, "Oh, his lack of athleticism."
He's not explosive at all.
And that's things like I kind of like guys that aren't. Their game isn't like. Of course, I want prime Andre Iguodala coming out of Arizona, or prime Vince Carter. But as those guys age into their prime, they do lose a little bit of that athleticism. And when you've spent your whole life being able to out-athlete everyone, your game needs to change. Like Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was a guy who was just a dumb athlete coming out, but was incredibly raw. He had to mature his game, and now you still see flashes of it, like driving to the rim and absolutely punching on the Mavs in Game 2 and Game 3. But you see a lot more craft in his game now. Da Silva's coming in the league with craft. And I think particularly when you're talking about role players, guys that have high level craft, they're kind of like mid and late career Nick Batum's where you're like, yeah, they're athletic, but their game isn't predicated on that. It's high level. Kyle Anderson is a perfect example. Came into the league not athletic. His nickname's Slow-Mo for a reason, but it doesn't matter. Boris Diaw is another one where you're just like, the things that they do, it's so much cerebral and understanding what to do, when to do, how to do it, and being ahead of the curve. So I like Da Silva, but if they're taking Clingan at 7, I would like to see an upside swing somewhere. And if you think Klingan's that's fine, but that's not me. Kristen Peak, who again we'll have on next week, she has Portland taking Cody Williams at 7, Tejan Salon going 8 to the Spurs, which is
again, one draft mock has 14,
yeah.
The other one has 7.
And then at 14, Kaishan George, who just worked out.
Okay, if it could be any further than 8 to 14, Kevin O'Connor has him mocked at 26. And she has the Blazers taking him at 14. The breadth of where guys are seen in this draft is absolutely bonkers.
14 to like 24 to 26, somewhere in that range. Basically, essentially the second half of the draft. You can talk to scouts who've been doing this for 30 years, someone who's been doing this for 2 years, and you're just going to get different information. And it's not that somebody else's intel is better or worse necessarily. It's all eye of the beholder stuff. Like I've talked to executives on the same staff who have said one thing about one guy and then had a vastly different opinion on another.
Can we just get this out of the way right now? We need to stop the people who are going to talk themselves into the picks as being awesome and stop the people that are going to make these picks and make their assessment be, oh, that was a horrible pick. The reality is at 7 and 14 in the 2024 NBA draft, you have no effing idea because nobody has any idea. This is going to be the ultimate, like, see if it works.
Let's check back in 5 years.
And that's why I want to look at this draft. And if Portland, if we can all say at the end of the draft next Wednesday, at the end of the first round,
like they took some swings,
that, hey, they took a big swing. They put Joe Cronin, put him on the table and said, hey, we're going to trust it. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
That's where I'm at.
I want take a big swing, take upside. Don't be safe because the reality is nobody knows right now. Nobody knows. So take that swing, and if they are in, they won't be good in 2024.
But if they go down swinging, they go down swinging.
They go down swinging, and then you have the 25 draft, and then we'll see. We'll move on from there.
That one's a little bit more poignant. You better nail that one.